Welcome, friends. Today we're going to discuss a little bit about what you can expect from the whole thesis process. What does the big picture look like? And much of this information you might have gotten in PSYC 6320, but just as kind of a starting point, I want to make sure we're all in the same, starting in the same lane here, is what does the whole process look like? What I've got in my background here is actually a document you'll have access to in this course, which is the thesis handbook. And it basically outlines almost all of what you really need to know as far as what to expect from this particular process and everything like that, and committees and proposal and defense and things like this too. What I want to do in this video is actually just give you a short overview. I'm not going to go page by page because you can tell at the top there's 21 pages, but just kind of give you a brief overview, especially if you sit here in class and think, I'm so daunted by the idea of writing a thesis. If I can give you a piece of advice to start out with, is writing a thesis is a bit like eating an elephant. Okay? You can't eat the whole thing at once. You have to do it one bite at a time. And if you think about your thesis being not a 50-page document so much as just a series of paragraphs that you write and build and craft and things and so forth, right? Especially because in 6324, we're essentially going to write half of it. And then in 6199, you'll write the second half. So it's not even something you have to do in a single sitting. And to that point, let me just kind of state this, and then I'll come back to it many times throughout these lectures, is do not save this to the last minute. And I want you to hear me well, because I am a procrastinator on a genetic level, right? I procrastinate like it's a bodily function, okay? But I will say, having gone through this process myself, you cannot save it to the last minute. It is only to be done successfully if it is done incrementally throughout a longer period of time. I spent a full 9 months writing my master's thesis. So it's got to be done in that respect. So some things to start out with, to think about as we move through this. First of all, at this point, you should have a good idea of what you want to do. In 6320, you did some foundational writing and some foundational preparation, which you can bring forward and utilize as the starting point for this. So at this point, you might think, yeah, I've got an idea. I've got it in 6320. I know what I want to do. I'm just going to keep writing and move on. Brilliant. Bless you. That is awesome. If you think, man, I wrote something in 6320, but I don't want anything to do with that in 6324, fine. Pick a new idea. But something we'll talk about in another video for this particular module is think of the practical concerns, including things like timeline, resources, accessibility, these sort of things, that will shape whether or not this project can be done well in the time frame you've got. And something I want to share with you, which a lot of people don't talk about, if you think back to like the 90s in particular and the early 2000s, the mindset was do your best, right? So everybody gets a trophy. If you show up, you get a trophy, right? That doesn't pertain to research. If you can't do research well, don't do it. Badly done or partially done research is worse than no research at all. So have that mindset. If I'm going to do something, it has to be done to a very, very high standard, or I shouldn't do it, right? And which ideally would be everyone's motto for life, but it just keep that in mind as we move through this. And let me kind of just show you, I'll move forward a little bit here and show you the table of contents. It kind of tells you what is to expect, what's to be expected for the proposal, what chapter 5 looks like. We've already kind of talked about chapter 5 a little bit well, we haven't yet, but you will in 6199. And what's going to be involved in this, right? So the stages in this particular course we'll be proposing, and then in 6199 we'll be defending. But what does the proposal look like? This really outlines a lot of this for you. The committee, for example, you want to make sure you have a 3-member committee. There's a subsequent lecture in module 2, I believe, maybe 3, I can't recall, about appointing a committee. Right? So who's in your committee? What is their role? And how are they going to encourage you towards success, right? Other things you want to think about too is this is going to be a topic that you really love, because essentially it's something you're going to be married to for the next 6 to 12 months, right? And B, can address effectively, right? So sometimes I have students who come to me with very, very lofty ideas and excellent ideas. To be fair, they're very, very good ideas. However, they're not something that can be done in the amount of time that we have for a master's thesis, or potentially with the resources that we have available to us for our master's students. So, as I said, we got to keep those practical concerns in mind. As I said, it's another video on this particular module as well, right? So essentially, let me give you the long and short of it. You're going to be writing I would aim for 50 pages of content. That doesn't include title page, abstract, table of contents, acknowledgments, references, appendices, graphs, whatever. 50 pages of writing, right, is what I would aim for. Fall a little bit short, that's perfectly all right, but a good thesis is going to end up in the 45 to 50 page range of content. All right, so kind of keep that in mind. While that might sound daunting, you have a long time to do it, right? So I would start writing now, or if you've already written 6320, you can bring that forward. It's not plagiarism. It's designed to be foundationally built in that class, and then you bring it forward, and then 6199 is a continuation of that. So it's all part of a sequence. In this class, you will actually propose your thesis, including the first 3 chapters, right? So chapter 1, which is introduction, chapter 2, which is a lit review, chapter 3, which is a methodology. You will have these 3 chapters written as part of this course and propose these 3 chapters, ultimately propose your thesis based on these 3 chapters to your committee. And that's part of the successful completion of this course, right? If you want, you can of course outline chapters 4 and 5 in advance if you have time, if you have the inclination to do so. But those are the 3 chapters you'll be evaluated for in this particular class, as well as the chapters you'll be evaluated for when it comes to your committee proposal. The proposal itself will involve you developing a short PowerPoint, also part of the requirements of this course, and sharing it with your committee, either via Zoom or face-to-face. Given that this is an online class, it'll probably be via Zoom. But you will present your slides to your committee, and at that point, they will decide whether or not to move you forward to the next stage, which would be preparing for defense and gathering data and things like this. So, you know, it's unlikely that they would reject you and say, no, this work's not going to, you can't do this project, you got to start at the beginning. I've actually never seen that happen at this university. So if you follow the guidelines that are set for you in 6320 and 6324, that should be a moot point. But the committee will say, okay, well, if you do this, that will improve your work, or make sure you pay attention to this, or maybe you should add that. It's a very formative, constructive process. So if you're already sweating, thinking, oh my gosh, I have to present this to 3 experts, it'll be all right. It's actually meant to be a very positive experience. And having experienced it myself, I will tell you, I found it to be very positive and constructive. The other mindset you want to have is what you are becoming is the expert on this topic. So when you go to propose, when you go to defend to a committee, you're sitting in a room where you know more about this topic than anyone else. So keep that in mind. Let that feed your efficacy and make you think, you know what, all I'm doing is sharing the wisdom that I have gained with people who already know a little bit less than I do on this particular topic. You are the expert. Okay, it's your show. And the work itself ultimately will culminate in the thesis, which will be published through the university, but ideally it would also result in publication or presentation at other conferences, at conferences, or in a journal. And 6199 will actually deal with this a little bit more. The purpose of this ultimately is to showcase that you know psychology and specifically research in a very practical way. You can design, conduct, analyze, and present research that is your own, right? Which is kind of the culmination of what you should have learned and will have learned, of course, through a BA and then ultimately a master's degree. This is an excellent way to help get you into a doctorate program as well. A lot of doc programs will ask you to submit this or ask for access to this as a way of assessing your level of skill and research prowess. So I understand at this point you're probably pretty daunted, and that's understandable because it is a master's degree, and something about the name master's degree is very, I don't know, daunting. I mean, I get it, but you can do this. You can do this. God has gotten you to this point, and God will get you through this challenge. So have a look through this manual. As I said, it's available on Blackboard. Have a look through this manual and get an idea of what's expected of you. And then don't hesitate to contact your professor, or you can contact me. My email address is jpellettier@hbu.edu. I love research. Research is what I do. I'm not a therapist or practicing psychologist. Research is my jam. So if you need anything from me, please don't hesitate to ask. But have a good look through here and know that